to the ABC Podcast.
Always be cool.
The show where your hosts, DC and BK, showcase your local business and real estate pros going gangbusters in leadership, community involvement, and just being cool.
Here are your hosts, serial entrepreneurs, mortgage experts at Summit Lending, and partners in crime, Darren Copeland and Bobby Kerr.
All right, everybody, it's the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with your hosts, Bobby Kerr, Darren Copeland.
What's up, everyone?
Man, we are very excited today. We've got Miami Dolphins wide receiver from 93 to 2001, Mr. OJ Juice McDuffie.
All right, everyone, here we go. Born December 2nd, 1969 in Marino, Ohio. Attended Hawken High School, where he excelled at football, basketball, track and field, and baseball. All-American wide receiver at Penn State. In 1992, was the MVP of the Fiesta Bowl. First-round pick of the 1993 draft. Led the league in receptions in 1998. He played 8 seasons, Bobby, with your Miami Dolphins.
That's right.
Inducted into the Dolphins Walk of Fame on December 29th, 2013. All-around awesome guy, OJ McDuffie. Welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
Thank you.
Yes.
Man, that's a lot of stuff right there, man. I didn't realize it was that extensive at times.
Right.
But I will say this, DC, it's actually officially 9 years of my pension. So, you know.
Oh, there you go.
That's important.
Hey, that extra year makes a big
You're damn
difference
right
on the
it does.
pension, doesn't it?
It does.
That's phenomenal. Hey, you know what? What we learned doing this show, OJ, is just because the internet says something doesn't mean it's true.
Facts. There you go.
Right?
There you go, man.
We've made that mistake by
you
pulling
guys
off
don't,
some
you don't
bio.
research with Wikipedia, I'm sure. You know what I mean?
Oh,
yeah.
never.
No,
Never.
no, not at all. And also, we learned the hard way is don't take Wikipedia's word for spouses' names, whether because they might not be with them anymore.
That is funny, man. They don't update
Yeah.
it. They got to update that a little sooner, right?
Right?
Exactly.
No kidding, man. Well, this is a pretty cool special episode. Actually, it's really cool because just 2 episodes ago, we had Mr. Richmond Webb on the show. And so we were talking right before you came on that we've got 2 first-round Miami Dolphin picks from 1990, 1993. That's pretty awesome and great company for sure.
Yeah, Richmond's one of my favorites of all time, man. You know, and funny thing about Richmond is we drafted Richmond to handle Bruce Smith in Buffalo.
Right.
You know what I mean? He did a hell of a job, man. And it's a shame that Richmond hasn't reached that plateau of the Hall of Fame yet, but it's coming. It has to. You know, and guys like Bruce are the ones that are the best mouthpieces for a guy like Richmond. But the thing about Richmond is, as you know, Bobby, he's so quiet and so cool and smooth. We call him Big Sexy. You know what I mean? Because he always had the nicest clothes on. He was quiet, just went about his business, man. And there's nothing sexier than that, bro. Like you were G'd up every day on the cruise. You know what I
I
mean?
was, man. I know. Everybody, if everybody knew, like in normal life back home, that's what I did on the cruise, they'd be like, man, what the hell are you doing every day in your Dolphins pullover and hat, ball cap every single day? But no, when I go on a cruise, it's time to lay it out.
That's right. That's right.
For sure, man.
You know, it's funny to talk about Richmond. So, you know, he's like a huge teddy bear, right?
Yeah.
So what was he like on game day? Did he just kind of flip a switch to destroy defensive tackles? I mean, was he one of those guys that just made that switch once he got on the field?
I think he had the same demeanor, DC. You know what I mean? He had the same calm, relaxed demeanor. He knew he was good. You know, he didn't have to say it. We let him know how good he was. But he just had that same demeanor, and his footwork and his hands were so incredible, you know, that he didn't have to worry about anything, you know. Sometimes you got to get a little help from a guy like, you know, Keith Sims inside. But for the most part, he was always quiet. You never heard him yell. You see some of these other guys, you know, even Keith Sims and guys like that. A lot of guys in football, they yell a lot. They're frustrated a lot. I never saw Big Sexy lose his cool, man.
That's awesome.
When you were how about you? When you were on the field, did you? I mean, you're obviously really, really cool guy, really fun to talk to. Like everyone loves you on the field. Back in your playing days, were you the exact same guy, or were you like turn into a little bit of a monster on the field?
Man, look, you saw me in person, man. You know, I'm not the biggest, strongest, fastest guy, so I had to do something different. You know what I mean? So that crazy had to come out. Not to mention, I return punts. Returning punts says I'm crazy already. You know what I mean?
Right.
So but yeah, man, it was like it wasn't. Here's how I approached the games. Right, I respected all my teammates, of course, and I respect the opponents we're playing against. But if the opponents start talking trash, then it's going to change my whole game plan. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to respect them. I'm trying to respect their careers. I'm trying to make sure that they get paid and they don't get hurt. But if they start talking trash, then the game it gets a little muddy at times, you know. So backside blocks, blindside blocks, which you can't do anymore. Those become part of it if you're over there on the other side chattering at me. If you're talking trash, it's game on for me. I'm already going out there trying to beat you, with the the mental part and all that other stuff. But after that, then it's got to become a physical part of the game, and that's what I use to my advantage.
Hey, OJ, so that brings up a great question, man. Who's like one or two guys, whether they're a corner or safety or whoever it was, who was one or two guys that would just always be chatterboxing out there?
Man, let me see. This guy that's Otis Smith. He was kind of like the same thing with me. He was a good corner, wasn't great, but he chopped it up a lot. He talked a lot. You know what I mean? And he was tough. Ty Law, he didn't say much. He was just that good that he didn't have to say much. You know what I mean? One of those guys that, you better not wake him up if he's sleeping that game. Just let him, just let him be quiet.
Right.
But for the most part, man, it was just mostly, the guys that talk the most are the guys on my own team. Sam Madison and Pat Surtain, those guys every day in practice, man. I couldn't shut them up. You know what I mean? So especially an older guy when they were young in the game, it was it was rough hanging out with those guys all the time.
No doubt. I heard a story that you've told about that Kansas City Chiefs playoff game on New Year's Eve. And we're in Kansas City, right? So growing up a lifetime Dolphins fan since I was 7 years old in Kansas City. Talk about that game, as I heard you tell a story once about lighting up Derek Thomas.
Oh, man, please. God rest his soul, man. Right. I caught DT, and we were running a curl flat combination at playoff games, first quarter. And I want to say I affected the game by, knocking him out real quick. But anyhow, we're running a curl flat combination, and Danny throws a flat route to Keith Byers, and I peel back, and I catch DT. He wasn't ready for me. You know what I mean? And I depleted him. And he he tells a story, or he told a story about how, he was on one knee. He might be in concussion protocol if it were today's game, and I wish, because he still came out. I think he had like 3 or 4 sacks that game after that. So I didn't really affect him that much, But so I caught him, I depleted him, and I was towards the end of the quarter. And so he's looking at the clock, he's looking at me, and he realized it was a little wide receiver that caught him. So he kind of, slowly moved his way over to the sideline so he could get a little bit more of a break. And then he took a knee over there. And he told me that he had to, he said his boys, his best friends that saw that gave him crap like forever about that, man. You know what I mean? He said that. And for me, I was a little worried that, because DT, he lived down here in South Florida. Yeah. I was worried about seeing him out in public after that.
Oh, right.
I was like, man, if I go to Publix, is DT going to be there? If I go to a club, is DT? If I go to the beach, am I going to run to Derek Thomas, man? Because I knew he wanted to get me back. He had to want to get me back for that one.
That's good.
So, because, that didn't happen too much to DT in his career.
No, and that's the only way you can catch him, the way I caught him. He didn't see me coming. You know what I mean? It was considered a dirty shot right now, but it was part of football back then. But the only way I could get him was for him not to see me coming. I've had other instances where guys have seen me coming that are that size, and they knocked the crap out of me. You know what I mean? It was like this little dude, it was like they ran through me like I didn't even exist, man. So, the fact that he didn't see me coming was a benefit to me for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So
even, but Richmond was even talking about DT. He's kind of – he's been gone a long time now in Kansas City, but everyone still loves hearing those stories about him and Neil Smith on the other side. And
they were unbelievable, man. They were unbelievable. They were scary to deal with. I know Richmond had to deal with them more than I did. So I can only imagine game planning and try to figure. I remember we played against Derek Thomas in college too at Penn State when he was at Alabama, and he had 8 sacks against us in one game, right? And so he beat every single person on the line of scrimmage. They moved him along the whole line of scrimmage, right? He beat every single person on the line of scrimmage. Not only that, with 8 sacks, he forced safety on one of them, and they ended up beating us 8-3. We had a field goal. They had 2 field goals and that safety from DT. So I knew about him well before I got into the NFL. That's for damn sure.
Right, right. Hey, speaking of back in the day, OJ, we always joke on this show that Bobby and I, we study more now than what we ever did in high school and college, right? We actually do the research now. So in doing so, man, I looked at some of your stats in high school, and is this right that you had over 7,300 all-purpose yards in high school?
Yeah, in 3 years. Yeah, it was fun.
In 3 years.
High school was a lot of fun, man. You know, and we had a coach that was dynamic, and he found different ways to, you know, get me going, you know, punt return, kickoff return.
Yeah.
I played wide out my first year, and then I played running. See, I grew up as a running back. You know, my whole life I was a running back until I went to high school that sophomore year. I was a wide receiver for 1 year, and then I went back to running back the next 2 years. You know, and then I didn't switch to serious wide receiver until I got to Penn State. But so my coach found different ways to get me involved, and we had a really, really good team. I mean, our team was so good, and you know, we made it to the state semifinals twice and state championship once. You know, we lost 3 games on my whole career. You know, so when you get opportunities like that, and you got a lot of great guys around you, it was just like it was fun. And we had so many teams that we played against that were a lot bigger than us, but none of them were faster than us, and definitely half of them weren't smarter than us. So, yeah, it worked out pretty well for us to be able to accumulate a lot of good numbers. And so, yeah, man, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. You know, obviously we didn't get what we wanted to achieve, which is a state championship, but along the way we won a lot of games.
Yeah, that number just stuck out at me because that's like video game numbers. I mean, that's just sick type of stuff. I'm like, holy smack.
Yeah, you know what's so funny too is like all these guys, you know, they had these game plans to try to stop me, you know, and it just our scheme and game plan and, you know, some of the things I could do on the football field. You know, you look at all the guys in the NFL, all of them are high school superstars, you know. I mean, at that point, you know, all of them are at some point they were high school superstars. And, you know, for me, it's just like having such a great team around me and then just the whole work ethic for myself. I mean, that's what it was all about. I didn't even want to go to this high school. My mom made me go to this high school.
Did she really?
She made me go to this, a private school. You talk about Hawkins School outside of Cleveland, Ohio. She made me go to school. And the reason I play wide receiver is because I didn't go to training camp until a week before the season started. The first year, she made me transfer to the school. And so the easiest position for me to learn was the wide receiver. So that's why I played wide receiver for 1 year. And then once that first year was over, I loved it. I absolutely loved it, you know. And so that's when I moved back to my original position. He moved me back to my original position. And, you know, the rest was history. You know, I had 2 back-to-back player of the years in my division in the state of Ohio. And just, you know, our team was just incredible.
So did you tell your mom eventually that she was right?
Nah, hell no.
Give her props on that.
Nah.
Hell no.
Nah. She knew she was right. She just shake her head, you know, especially, you know, once, you know, you start getting these scholarship offers and things like that. She knew she was right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think one thing a lot of people don't realize about you, OJ, is you were quite a baseball player as well.
Yeah, I got drafted by the Angels actually at Penn State, and that was one of the reasons I chose Penn State. The 4 schools I was looking at, 5 schools I was looking at the end: Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Penn State. 4 of them said I could play baseball as well as football. And so in baseball, which is so funny, is that, you know, I did both. I did both baseball and track in the same season. You know, so I played football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then in the spring I played football and I ran a little track. So baseball was my love. She wanted me to play baseball. As you guys know, you know, I talk about my mom a lot. She didn't want me out there getting hit, taking those hits. Sure. You know what I mean? So she thought that baseball was my best avenue, you know, to get to the major leagues or any type of professional sport. And so I actually I didn't like baseball as much at the end of the day, because once I got to Penn State, we're playing in March. You guys, I mean, Kansas City weather, Penn State, it's kind of the same.
It's cold. Yeah.
It was cold as hell. It was snowing one time. I was in center field, and I said, you know, I'm done with this.
I'm done with this.
I'm done with this. And then I got drafted by the Angels in the 41st round. They came to Penn State. I asked them what my signing bonus is going to be, and they said, "Oh, we'll give you $10,000." And we're like, you know what? I'm done. I want to focus on football. I know I can make more money playing football than I can playing baseball. Plus, I can still be in the minor leagues at 53 years old right now. I can still be in the minor leagues. You never know.
That's true, man.
No doubt. We've had a lot of professional athletes on the show and a lot of Kansas City Royals players, and they talk about, you know, getting scouted and then drafted, and then whatever round it was, and some of those guys had early, you know, offers like $10,000, $20,000, you know, and it worked out for some of them, but most people, it doesn't. You're stuck. If you're getting drafted in the 20th through 40th rounds, right, you might be a career minor leaguer. So I think you made the right decision.
I'm watching this kid now for the Marlins, Jonathan Davis.
Mm-hmm.
who spent 11 years in the minors, and he's got his call up, and now he's batting in the last 3 games, he's batting 900 or something. You know what I mean? So
he's got his chance.
Just hang in there like that. Yep. That's impressive. It really is.
For sure. Well, everybody that we've had on the show, especially NFL stars, we asked them the question to kind of describe draft day and what that was like for you, especially being a first-round draft pick. Richmond gave his. We've had, Duron Cherry, Trent Green, all these guys on the show. They share their experiences, and we love hearing about kind of what that was for you. Take us through the emotion, the family, the phone call with what I assume is Coach Shula. Just talk us through that day.
Yeah, it was very interesting because nowadays, the draft is Thursday night. It's prime time. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. Thursday night, Friday night. It's right. What the NFL has done with the draft is just monopolizing primetime TV. Don't put a basketball game or baseball game or anything on that night because your ratings are going to suffer.
Right.
To the NFL draft, and that's how incredible and how powerful the NFL and the Shield is right now. So for me though, our first round draft started at noon on Sunday. So for me, I was up at Penn State. They had their spring game. I was up at Penn State kicking it. My last time really kicking it at Penn State before real life kind of started for me, real life as in the NFL. And so I was up there all weekend. I got up Sunday morning and drove back to Cleveland, Ohio. I was so tired, DC and Bobby. I was so tired, man, that I laid on the couch, man. I knew that I wasn't going anywhere before 20. From what I had seen, all my projections, I wasn't going before 20. For the 20th pick. And so I told my mom, I'm going to take a nap, because I'm exhausted. And my mom was so worried that I was going to sleep through the phone call. And think about this now. It's a house call. It's a house phone.
It's a landline.
It wasn't like, a cell phone where, you could be anywhere. I had to be at home. I give them the number that I'm going to be at, you know what I mean? So I was at home. Yeah. And so my mom was so worried that I was going to sleep through the call, right? Yeah. And so we get to the 20th pick, and she wakes me up, So I'm sitting there watching 21. I thought I was going 22 to San Diego. That's what I was projected to go. 22 comes. They pick guy Darian Gordon, who's a hell of a player. For that came out of, I think, Stanford. He played DB for them. So then 23 goes, 24 goes, then 25 hits, and I get a phone call. The only phone call I got, and it was Coach Shula. And he asked me, he said, OJ, would you like to be a Miami Dolphin? I said, I want to say that's the dumbest question ever. I'm like, hell yeah. Hell yeah, I want to be a Miami Dolphin. You know what I mean? But it was exciting. For me, I wanted to go, close to home, which is either Cleveland Browns or Cincinnati Bengals, close to school, Philadelphia Eagles or Pittsburgh Steelers, or go warm. I got warm. I got Dan Marino, and I got Don Shula, man. I hit the jackpot.
That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal.
That's a great way to put it.
So what is that phone call like? Is it just like a 30-second call? Hey, would you like to be a Miami Dolphin? Or did you actually have a conversation?
No, there was no conversation. He had other things to do, man. He had to get back on the clock or something, you know what I mean? But it was just like, I just couldn't believe it, man. And, for me, I lived in Cleveland growing up. I moved up there when I was 12. Another decision my mom made me do, which I hated, but ended up being the best decision ever. But I grew up in a small town near Central Ohio, near Columbus, called Marion, Ohio. And once I got drafted, we got in my car and we drove down to Marion, and the place was bananas. Nobody had ever been drafted out of my hometown NFL. We had some baseball players that went kind of like when I got drafted in baseball, but nobody in the first round. My whole town was nuts. We went to my aunt's house, my mom's sister's house, and people just started coming and coming and coming. There must have been like 300 people. The house was probably 1,200 square feet, but there was just people everywhere. And the next thing you know, the police show up because they didn't know what the hell was going on. They thought it was like, I don't know what they thought it was, man. And they started blocking off the streets. And people started going around it, man. It was just the most amazing experience. I wish we had video and stuff back then because the spectacle was like unbelievable. And so it was really, really cool, man. And then the Dolphins sent in like some trucks, some TV trucks in from Columbus to do a live feed from Marion. And I was just surrounded by just family and friends, man. It was pretty cool.
Gosh, you got your own ticker tape parade, basically.
Right.
You're running through Marion, Ohio. That's phenomenal. Well, let's stay there a little bit for Coach Shula because we can't talk about the Miami Dolphins. We can't talk about great Miami Dolphins players without talking about Shula. You and I were on that cruise ship a couple of months ago, and to hear so many stories about Coach Shula and someone who never got to meet him. It was really incredible. Now, getting to hang out with his widow, that was really special, and to see her so humbled with so many, not only fans, but former players from Coach Shula over 4 decades, speak in such high regard for him. Can you just give us a couple of stories about Coach Shula and what he meant to you and how he really transformed your career?
Well, Coach, it was like, I probably, of anybody on that team or the teams, probably had the easiest transition to Coach Shula, because I went from Joe Paterno to Don Shula, and they're cut from the same cloth. The only difference between the two is one cusses and one doesn't. Joe doesn't cuss, and Don Shula he definitely cusses. But the respect that he has in the whole world, not just in the football world, but just in general. And also what he commands and demands from his players is second to none. He treated us like men. He was always a stickler on details. I mean, there wasn't a game that we weren't prepared to go in and play. But the thing about it that I loved about Coach was that, he was a guy that, that loved his players. He really did. He loved his players, man. And you can tell by how tough he was on guys, that he gave a damn. If he wasn't tough, if somebody, how it goes. If somebody's not tough on you, if a coach isn't tough on you, they don't think you're worth a crap.
Right.
He was tough on all of us. But once we got the great results, and he was one of those guys that just loved it, man, hugged on you, loved on you, man. And that was one thing that was hard to imagine from a guy like Coach Shula, because he was such a tough guy, But for me, I mean, the day he drafted me, man, he became, like one of my all-time favorites. I wasn't a Dolphin fan growing up.
Sure.
I was a Cleveland Browns fan growing up. But once that day hit on April 25th, 1993, the hell with the Browns. The Browns, they didn't pay one of my bills after that. You know what I mean? And so it was all about what Coach Shula did for me, man. I think that respect, that he got from all of us and that he gave us is incredible, man. And there are a couple of games. I mean, my first practice, where I finally got a chance to work with the number ones, which was shocking to me. We had so many good receivers on our team. Duper was still on the team. Irvin Fryer, Mark Ingram, Tony Martin. Keith Jackson was our tight end. And I finally got one little rep with the number ones, and they called a play that we hadn't even put in yet. You know what I mean? And I called timeout like a dumbass. I don't know why. I called timeout like a dumbass. And Shula, what the F are you doing? I said, Coach, we never put that play in. He said, well, it's in your playbook? He said, yeah. He said, well, you're responsible for it then. I'm like, damn, I didn't know I had to read the whole playbook before we even did the install. We didn't even do the install on that one, you know what I mean? So needless to say, that was my last rep, during that mini camp with the number ones. But at that point, you should have seen my ass digging into that playbook. You know what I mean? I was ahead of the game on the install, man. If there's something coming up, I was already ready for it, man. And that was one thing that he was a stickler about detail, like I talked about. But for me, it was important for me to learn every single thing, every single position on that thing, so I never had that situation happen with him again. I was never going to be the guy that gets called out for, running the wrong route or not knowing what the hell I'm doing, because that day, Coach had me ready for everything. And I should have been ready anyways, but I didn't know the playbook at that point. It was my second day in camp, but hey, I learned a lesson that day.
Hey, it only took once.
That's
right?
it. That's it.
That was it. That was
For
it.
sure.
And talking about legendary coaches, I mean, I don't want to skip over the Joe Paterno thing. So maybe take a couple minutes and, you mentioned 5 amazing football powerhouse schools previously. So what was it about Penn State? Why did you go to Penn State, and what was it like playing for Coach Paterno?
Yeah, being a Buckeye, born in the Buckeye State, it was Ohio State. We grew up Ohio State. Everything was Ohio State. Mm-hmm. We watched Ohio State on Saturday. I watched the game again on Sunday, and I just couldn't wait to one day possibly play for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And so when I was up in Cleveland, Ohio, that was my goal. My goal was to play for Ohio State, and I was locked and loaded to go to Ohio State. And they had a coach there, Earl Bruce, who was incredible. He was just an incredible football coach, and I just couldn't wait to play for Coach Earl Bruce. My senior year, they fired Earl Bruce. And so this is in the winter, like December of my senior year, they fired Earl Bruce, and they're bringing a guy named John Cooper. John Cooper, he came over from Arizona State, And he came to visit me up in Cleveland. Came to my basketball game and came to my house and talked to me and my mom. And me and my mom just didn't get a good vibe from him. You know, we got a terrible vibe from him. And that was the reason I was like, well, damn, all right. So my second two choices, like 2A and 2B, were Penn State and Notre Dame. So once I crossed Ohio State off, it was either Penn State or Notre Dame. My mom wanted me to go to wanted me to go to Penn State. Wanted me to go to Notre Dame because a lot of kids that went to my high school were dying to get into Notre Dame. You know what I mean? Their parents said, we got to get you a Notre Dame. I didn't go to a Catholic school, but all these kids and their parents wanted them to go to Notre Dame. And she said, they're giving you money. They're trying to get you to go there, and these other people are trying to get there. I didn't like Lou Holtz, though. You know, it was not. I didn't like Lou Holtz. I didn't like my visit to Notre Dame. It felt like the guys that were there didn't really want me there. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's hard when you got a running back. You got running backs that are recruiting you or that are hosting you, and then you're potentially coming to take their job. You know what I mean? So it was like, they didn't show me much love. I went to Tim Brown's Heisman Trophy party. It was a dud. You know what I mean? So I'm like, this is how they do it here? I mean, this is not going to work for me here. You know what I mean? But my trip to Penn State was a bunch of guys, really good guys that, you know, I felt like I could hang out with away from football and away from school. And that was one of the things. Not to mention, you know, Joe said I could play baseball. You know, there were a few other factors. And then my last trip, I went to UCLA. When I came back, I had a long handwritten letter that Joe Paterno had written on spiral notebook paper. I don't even know if kids even know what spiral notebook papers are. On spiral notebook paper. I still use them. Listing the pros and cons. It was 7 pages of the pros and cons of me going to Penn State. And that kind of solidified it for me, man. You know, it was not everything wasn't all great. Everything is going to be amazing here at Penn State. He told me everything, you know, and that did it for me. That did it for me. And that's why I chose to go to Penn State. And, you know, I'm still so super close with all my guys. It's amazing because I play with a lot of guys that went to a lot of different schools. And I've never seen any other school be as passionate about their Saturdays and our Penn State football team playing than Penn State. You know, I'm on a group text with 20 guys that I play with that played on different teams around the country, you know, and they all sit there and they don't hear the pride that we had with Penn State, you know, and my wife, she's like, wait a minute, Penn State, you know, volleyball's on and you're watching it. Penn State soccer's on and you're watching it. Penn State lacrosse is on you, whatever it is, you know, Penn State, if it's on, I'm watching it, man. And so it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
That's phenomenal. Well, I know for the younger listeners, there's a couple points in today's podcast. One, there used to be phones called landlines that you had to listen to. Number 2 was spiral notebooks.
Yeah, that's great.
That was the thing back in the day. OJ, do you still have that letter from Coach?
Absolutely, I do. It's here. It's here in the vault. Wow. It's here in the vault.
That's amazing.
You know, it's so funny because we moved from one house to another, and that was one of the things I was looking for more than anything. Where the hell's my letter? So I make sure my letter makes the move because we downsized. So I want to get, you know, make sure we threw away certain things. We had like 20 years of documents. I want to make sure we just got rid of and shredded and stuff. But make sure I got my letter, make sure it's secured, and we found it.
That's phenomenal,
man. So we've had this same kind of conversation. This is a good segue. Had the same conversation with Richmond, but I want to read off the coaches that you've had in your college and your pro career. Correct me if I'm wrong at all.
Okay.
We've got Joe Paterno, Don Shula, Jimmy Johnson, Dave Wanstedt.
Yeah.
Am I missing anybody?
No. And those 2 levels.
Holy cow.
That's
amazing,
man. That's it. I would add my high school coach, Cliff Walton, as another legendary coach, man. Everybody's talking about, you know, and I hate to even get into part of this because, you know, it's probably, but for me, they always talk about, well, you play for 3 legendary coaches, and they talk about Joe Paterno, Don Shula, and Jimmy Johnson. I'm not a Jimmy Johnson fan. He's not a fan of mine. So my 3 legendary coaches are Cliff Walton, Joe Paterno, and Don Shula. And I love Dave Wanstedt. But Jimmy, the hell with Jimmy Johnson.
All right.
Bottom line.
Right on.
You know, he's one of the worst coaches I ever played for, in my opinion. So with that being said, yeah, I mean, I had a hell of a list. I mean, he is a Hall of Famer, though, right? So I got to give him that. You know,
right. Sure.
Shula's a Hall of Famer. Paterno's a Hall of Famer. So I've got some Hall of Fame coaches in there. My high school coaches in the high school Hall of Fame. So I'm good. I have some really good coaches.
Well, and I would venture to say, OJ, you know, I think most people would agree that your high school coach is probably one of the most important people in your life because it's such a formative years. coming to high school, and you alluded to it earlier, like he came up with game plans to scheme you because everyone was trying to stop OJ McDuffie, right?
Yeah.
So that right there is such a huge role model and mentor. So feel free, if you want to talk about your high school coach, man, go ahead.
Yeah,
is
man,
Coach Cliff Walton is he still alive?
Yeah, he is. He is.
Awesome.
And Cliff Walton, he's been going through some health issues, obviously, because we're all getting up there a little bit. But Cliff Walton, just amazing. Amazing coach at Hawken. And what he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot about teamwork, because I was, a lot of these guys we talked about before, they were the man. All I really wanted was the ball.
Right.
And I just give me an opportunity to show what I can do. And he taught me how to count on guys next to me and depend on them. And my teammates were really good, so I should have done it in the first place. But he always was that guy that put everything in perspective for me. And was just a hell of a leader. I didn't hear any coach cursing me until I got to the pros. Coach Walton didn't curse at me. Coach Paterno and his whole staff didn't curse. Joe got mad if he heard any 4-letter words. He called it.
Right. No one was allowed to coach.
So it was
no one was allowed.
Yeah. So it was like no cursing whatsoever on both of those staffs. So I got to the NFL and then I hear Shula and Gary Stevens and Marino, all those guys cursing. It was like, man, there's some grown man stuff going on here, But
you got a whole new vocabulary.
Exactly right, man. But he got his point across the right way. A God-fearing man. Always in church. Treat us like even though we're kids, like men, and just had every single game, man. Just had us motivated and ready to play. You talk about X's and O's that we were talking about a little bit, but also just the speeches before games. And, he just was just like, he had us. Like I said, we were always undersized team. We were an undersized team. We only had like 40 guys on our team. We played against teams that had 70, 80 guys on their team, big guys. But we always found a way to out-scheme them and run around them and run past them. We didn't fear anybody because of Coach Walton, and we still don't.
That's great.
Amazing.
That's great, man. I hope our Dolphins do that this year and they just run around everybody.
Yeah, I heard Waddle talking about putting on muscle to run through guys. Don't run through guys, man.
I know.
I tried that one time, right, early in my career, and Urban Fryer said, "Yeah, young buck, live to play another down, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Live to play another down. You can't. This ain't high school. This ain't college, man. You can't run through these big dudes, man. Get your butt down. Live to play another down, man. So I hope Waddle doesn't. Yeah.
Waddle does look. He looks bigger, but
does,
bro,
man,
don't you put on 15 pounds of muscle doesn't mean you can truck Micah Parsons.
Dude, right. Micah's still sitting at 250. You know what I mean? Leave Micah alone. Don't
Seriously.
Don't go there.
So we've heard that you were Dan Marino's favorite receiver during, especially, just those formidable years with you as a Dolphin. Take us through, obviously, the specialty of Mr. Dan Marino. And I'll say this just today, a little bit ago before the podcast, our very own Patrick Mahomes here in Kansas City, he was interviewed and he listed his top 5, top 6 quarterbacks of all time. Of course, Mr. Marino's in that list for him. So now that we've got somebody that his whole career basically caught passes from Dan Marino, talk us through that relationship off the field, on the field, and how special it was to play with him.
Well, yeah, I mentioned earlier how, not only did I get South Florida and the weather and Coach Shula, but I got Dan Marino. What wide receiver doesn't want to go and play for Dan Marino? Still in his prime, still flinging that thing around the field like that. But at the beginning, though, it was a little tough relationship for us because, he's a Pitt guy, I'm a Penn State guy.
I know. I wrote this down. I wrote that down.
I'd let him know a couple of times that, Dan, you got to let that college stuff go, bro. We're on the same team now, man. We're on the same team now, man. Let it go, bro. Let it go. But I'm going to tell you, man, it was so much fun playing for Danny. The dude was such a command of this offense that he'd been in for a long time. And I think that's part of the reason I probably got in trouble for that one play, because all those guys have been in that off. I think Danny might have called that. He might have called that on. Now that I think about it, I'm going to have to give him a call. He might have called that on purpose to get me in trouble, man. You know what I mean? Get this young guy out of here from Penn State. Let's see if he knows this play that we never put in.
I'm glad we could turn up some bad memories.
Yeah, he set me up. I bet. But I'm going to tell you, though, man, it took a little while for us to actually vibe, because I didn't really get a lot of run with the first team for a little while. All I was doing was returning kicks. Yep. Returning punts, returning kickoffs. And then towards the second half of my first year, I started doing more third down work. Then my second year, I got more burn. And then towards the end, like you talked about, I was Danny's guy. Me and Danny were on such the same page with everything when it came to play calls, when it came to checks, when it came to blitzing, making sure Danny didn't get hit by a free blitzer. That was super important for me to be where I'm supposed to be and when I'm supposed to be there. And that's why Danny threw the ball to me so much. Jimmy Johnson, the guy we referenced earlier, Jimmy got mad. He actually told Danny he throws the ball to me too much. And he said, how the hell is that?
I read that.
Really?
Okay, so I read that last week, and now it's starting to make sense. I thought he was almost like tongue-in-cheek saying that.
Yeah.
But he wasn't.
No, he said he threw the ball to me too much. And I'm going to tell you what, when you got a guy that's converting, 70+% of his catches in the first downs, how can you throw it to him too much? You know what I mean?
Right.
And Jimmy was just that type of hater, man. And he really, he hated me. He hated Danny. He hated anybody pretty much that played for Shula when he came in. He cleared out the whole roster except for a couple of guys, and me and Danny were the lucky ones that got to hang around,
Right.
And so, I mean, the love that Danny and I had for each other, towards the end of his career, and the love that we have for each other now was incredible. I'll tell you a quick story. Like when Danny was retiring, he retired 2 years before I did. When he was retiring, I was on vacation in Cancun with a bunch of my buddies, and he called me. And he said, Juice, I want to let you know that I'm retiring tomorrow, And I was in my room by myself, and I was crying like a baby, bro. I was crying like a baby. And when he went up in that speech and he said the toughest guy I played was OJ McDuffie, I was crying like a baby, bro. And I'm so glad I was by myself. You know what I mean? Because it wouldn't look too manly if I was, have my girl or anything special with me, man. And we've been really cool ever since, bro. I mean, it's just like he's one of those guys, man, who you saw him on the cruise, Bobby. It's hard to be Dan Marino, man.
Oh my gosh.
Everywhere you go, it's tough being Dan Marino, man. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for a lot of people that come around. He's got to keep it moving, but damn, he has to. He really has to keep it moving, man, because otherwise, Danny's a guy. If he signs one autograph, he has to sign them all.
He'll be there for all day long.
Yeah, and it just can't. I get maybe 10 people, and the rest of them's I was, keep it moving. But just a great guy, man. Really, really, that's my guy right there, man. One of the greatest to ever throw the rock on the football field.
So OJ, when he called and you had a few tears about the retirement, were you sad that he was retiring, or were you just scared who was going to be your next quarterback throwing you the football?
That's a great question. We had some good guys in the pipeline, the Damon Hewards, and then we ended up getting Jay Fiedler. I was just sad because he was retiring, man, and I knew it was getting close.
Yeah.
Think about it. We played that Jacksonville game, and Danny got beat up so much towards the end of his career, bro. That you knew it at some point it was coming to a close, man. So just to see such a great guy and a legend at his position, a legend on the football field, call it quits, man. That's a tough deal, man. But I tell you, it was just for him. It was time because of the situation more than anything. I think Danny could have played another year, but it wasn't a good environment for him, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah,
and I always like to ask this question, OJ, because I don't think television does, the athletes a lot of, justification, because I'm always curious, like, how hard did Dan Marino throw that football? Like, I mean, how fast was that thing coming out of that shotgun?
Oh yeah, it was definitely getting a fastball. I mean, that's what he called it, man. Once you go up 10 yards, break out, fastball. That's kind of how you call it, And he wants you to get your head around like Linda Blair, from The Exorcist,
like Linda Blair.
Yeah, man. He was serious about it. And he took pride in practicing ear holding you, man. If you don't get your head around fast enough, the ball's coming, it's gonna pop you right in the head, man. So he did throw it hard. I was lucky enough, like I talked about going from Paterno to Shula. I was lucky enough to have Kerry Collins my last 2 years at Penn State, and he threw a fastball, and that thing was humming too. So and then he ended up being number 5 pick in the draft, after, a couple years after that. So I was ready for the fastball. I wasn't ready for coming out of my breaks as fast when that ball's on its way, because Danny's anticipation and Danny's ability to throw you open was incredible. Whereas in college, I was running wide open. I had a lot of time to see the ball. With Danny, he had to fit it in some windows, and that thing was unbelievable. It was humming, and I was ready. I was ready. It was fun. I'm gonna tell you a quick story too about Danny, man. You know how Danny is. You see him yelling at receivers and yelling at guys, and he yelled at me one time in a game, and on TV, I saw the copy afterwards, right? On TV, they said, well, that has to be McDuffie's fault because Danny's been in the league for 15 years, And so we get to film on Monday, and Danny looks back at me. We see the play over, and Danny's like, "Oh, my bad, Juice, my bad." I'm like, I wish everybody else knew that. You know what I mean? No,
right,
right.
We're
the only ones that know it's your bad. Everybody else thinks it's my bad, bro. You know what I mean?
Can't be Danny's fault. That's great.
Hey, at least he was man enough to say, "Hey, my bad."
Well, I was gonna let him know. I was gonna let him know himself. I was gonna let him know that, look, Danny, see, this is cover 2. Whatever. I don't know what the situation was, but yeah.
Man. Well, so you brought it up. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. So kind of that 95, 96-ish with Jimmy Johnson. I mean, I've heard stories that he was trying to trade Marino, trying to run him out of town. Maybe it had some of the same situation with you too. Was it just what was so toxic? Was it because the regime with the Shula era and he just wanted to be defensive minded? What was that relationship like?
Well, I think he definitely wanted to trade Danny because you look what happened in Dallas for him when he traded Herschel Walker, and he got everything. He created that organization over again when he's able to trade Herschel Walker and picked up all those draft picks. I think he's looking for the same type of payout for the Miami Dolphins at that point, and I just feel like for the most part, anybody Shula was not on his good side. And so we really had to prove ourselves all over again. The fact that I made it through for a couple more years with Jimmy Johnson was pretty incredible. I know he wanted, and every year they try to replace me. They bring in free agents, they draft guys. They try to replace me every single year when Jimmy got there, and it just didn't work out for him. Until I got hurt, they couldn't get rid of me. And so I just thought that, for the most part that, I don't think you ever get Danny to say anything bad about Jimmy. I don't give a damn. I have nothing to lose by saying something bad about that guy because I thought he was one of the worst coaches I ever played for. And so, but I definitely feel like a lot of Shula guys, we weren't his favorites. That's for sure.
Interesting.
Gotcha.
So when you did the fish tank show with Zach Thomas, and Zach's talking, his opinion's a little bit different.
Dude, well, I mean,
that was interesting.
Jimmy loved his defense. He didn't give a damn about the offense. He loved his defense, and Jimmy gave Zach a shot. It's so funny you say that because going into that interview, Bobby, Seth knows, my partner knows that I don't like Jimmy Johnson, but I said, Seth, it's not about me, it's about Zach in his pod. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be as positive as I can. I won't say anything negative about Jimmy in Zach's podcast. You know what I mean?
You did good. You did good.
So I was just, I had to remain professional in that situation, even though I wanted to be like, this mother, you know what I mean? I didn't do it.
I love it.
Bite your tongue.
I love it. Well, that's pretty special for Zach. Another teammate making the Hall of Fame. I think Richmond's going to get there. Yeah. That's really cool to play with some Hall of Famers that you're still really close with, that you're buddies with, to say, man, I'm so proud of you. You accomplished the top of the mountain in our profession. That's really special. I thought the interview that you guys did with Zach was really, really good. Obviously, the NFL Films filming the whole thing was really, really special. But obviously, very happy for Zach, and hopefully we'll be really happy for Richmond someday too.
Yeah, man. It's kind of funny, man. It's like, I play with 3 Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? And hopefully get that 4th in there, and hopefully Clayton gets in there. We got a bunch of – I never played with Clayton, but he needs to be in the Hall of Fame as well. But, to play with Danny, to play with Jason Taylor, to play with Zach, and hopefully Richmond gets in there. I mean, my trips to Canton are beautiful. I love making that trip to Canton. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it's a fun trip going back home, really, for me, so it's just pretty cool.
It's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and talking about good and special players, so one of the questions I had for you, OJ, is the corners. Who was 1 or 2 guys that really gave you, not really a hard time, but a challenge? Who was some really good guys that were covering you back in the day?
Well, it was a hard time. It was, you hit it on the button. I'm going to tell you what, it started off young in my career when I'm going against Troy Vincent and J.B. Brown in practice. Practice was tougher than games sometimes because those dudes were unbelievable, especially Troy Vincent. Troy Vincent was long, strong, fast. It's hard to beat him,
Wasn't he drafted first round the year after you?
Yeah, the year before me.
Or year before you, yeah.
Yeah, him and Marco Coleman were our first round picks the year before me in 92, and then I came the year after that. But, man, he was tough to deal with. He really was. And then when I, in the league, then I had to deal with guys like I talk about Ty Law, Tyler was my nemesis, man. That dude there he was tough to deal with. Another guy, long, long arms, strong, quick. They had a great scheme for him. I see him today. He lives down in South Florida. I want to crack back block on him. You know what I mean? I want to try to get some get back from when we played against him in New England. You know what I mean? But he's a super nice guy, man. And we chop it up a lot. But then I went against Deion Sanders a couple of times. When Danny saw Deion on me, he didn't even throw. He didn't even look my way. So I didn't. We can't even count that as him going against me. Yeah. But
he did. He just use that as a decoy. Just
right. Juice. See if you could. But see, Deion didn't even care. Deion's like, I got this guy. You guys got the rest of them. So it was. But for the most part, man, I just ran in a lot of trouble or a lot of good battles with Ty Law. Man, that was my dude. That every game you're trying to figure out a way so I can beat Ty Law. Put me in the slot. Put me on the left side. Was he going to travel with me? Is he going to stay on the right side only? Different things like that to try to to get open against a guy like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back a little bit as we're getting close here to the end. We talked about that wild card game, 1994 against our Kansas City Chiefs here. Listen to the headlines here. We've got Marino versus Montana, right? The first time that they had played against each other since the Super Bowl in 84.
Nice.
Right.
Marino versus Montana, Schottenheimer versus Shula. You've got OJ, stats right here, 2 kick returns for almost 60 yards. 1 rushing attempt for 19 yards, 2 receptions for 25 yards. Obviously, jacking up DT, Derek Thomas in the game.
Right.
And then throw on top of it, tough loss. That's Montana's final game ever.
Yeah.
That's a pretty.
No.
Yeah, that was, and it was that 94 you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Christmas
was
Eve.
my second
or
year.
Or New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve.
I think it might have been
Maybe.
New Year's Eve. I think it was playoffs had probably New Year's Eve. But yeah, man, that was we thought we had a good team that year too, bro. You know what I mean? And we thought we had a really good team. Thought we should have gone further. I mean, the year before, I want to say my rookie year, 93, we were 9-2 at one point. We beat Dallas in the Leon Lett play, on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Then we lost our last 5 games.
We talked about that with Richmond.
Yeah. And so we lost our last 5 games after that and didn't make the playoffs. So we knew coming back we had a really, really good team. And to be able to host a playoff game against the Chiefs, who were a really good team at that point. I think they were playing well at that point too, to even get in and see Dan going against Montana. I mean, it was a special game to be in and be a part of. And to be able to, do my little parts of what I was doing, I was talking about kick return here, they threw reverse in here, different little things, blocking downfield or crackback blocking on DT.
Right.
I was just so hyped to be in the playoffs, bro. I'm in the playoffs in the NFL, man. This is my first one. Let's go have at it, and that's what it was
Playing
about.
against Marcus Allen, Joe Montana, Derek Thomas, Dale Carter, Neil Smith, all these guys. Wow.
Man, they were so good. A lot of guys late in their careers at that point, but man, they were still good and still scary as hell. You know what I mean?
Oh man. I tell you what, OJ, what I was going to say is, you should have seen this town in 92, 93, whenever they made that trade to get Joe Montana. Oh. Man, you thought he was a second coming, right? Yeah. Even though, he's at the end of the career of everything. But we, through the 80s, the Chiefs were just awful.
Abysmal.
And, the Schottenheimer era started, we had the defense, but to get a legendary quarterback like that, I mean, we were pretty jazzed.
And Marcus Allen, too.
Marcus Allen.
Yeah.
In fact, I think 93 is when we lost the AFC Championship game. We had to go up to Buffalo. And then I think this playoff game that we're talking about, I think that was the year
next
after.
Year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's kind of like how the Jets are feeling about Aaron Rodgers right now, when you get legends like that, it really is, especially in a league that's driven by quarterback play. You have to feel pretty special about it. Back in the day when we played at 94 with Montana, we ran the ball a lot. A lot of teams ran the ball a lot. Marcus Allen was a huge pickup for Kansas City as well, But nowadays, you got a guy that can sling it like Rodgers, man. It makes them formidable. We're still going to kick their butt a couple times this year, but they're formidable. You know what I mean? But you got to respect it. Got to respect it.
Yeah. Hey, are you gonna make the trip over to Germany and watch the Chiefs Dolphins game over there?
I wish, man. Boy, do I wish. I'd have to talk to I do the post game show for the Dolphins. So if they take our whole unit over, Hell yeah. I would love to go to Frankfurt and watch us play.
Right.
I've been to London games twice. I've been I love seeing our team play elsewhere, man. It's a lot of fun to go overseas and watch our team play.
Yeah. It seems like Mr. Ross is a big fan of growing that global market for the Dolphins. That's for sure.
I tell you what, man, it's really, I know the NFL announced all the other countries and that are going to be doing some NFL stuff, and some of the teams that are with the Dolphins have been popular overseas for a long time, and it really starts with Dan Marino and Don Shula. I mean, we've played some games like that where, Dan Marino had all these fans fascinated for a long time. And then we always win the women over because of our colors. You know what I mean? It's like, we got it going on as an organization, man. I mean, I'm no slight to the Chiefs, but I don't even know the red and the yellow, whatever it is. It's not as sexy as this. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just not.
I hear you, man.
So,
you got the swag for sure.
I know, right?
That's
so just
great.
Being able to build that brand, worldwide is just important. And the NFL is doing a great job of being global, and for us to be a part of it. The way you go really global is be like the Chiefs. Win, 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 win. You know what I mean?
No
Same way the Warriors. The Warriors were way up in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. You know what I mean? Win, 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 win. Everybody likes them, So winning, brings a lot of people out. And, you get a lot more recognition,
Man,
like we're winning down here in South Florida.
mean,
South Florida's been great right now. Our hockey team just got to the Stanley Cup.
Panthers.
Hopefully the Heat can get into the finals. Dude, it's like, it's fun, and winning cures all.
Well, winning does cure all. I was getting ready to say, even the generations of Chiefs fans that are going to be around just for decades to come, just because of Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, here's the funny part about it. I'm sorry, DC, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
here's the funny part about it. There's going to be a lot of kids named Patrick or Patricia, moving forward.
Exactly.
You know how many Dannys and Danielles there are down in South Florida?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Exactly. I was giving one of my buddies crap. We were just down in Texas a few weeks ago, and I swear, because, Mahomes is from Texas, and you start seeing more Mahomes jerseys than you do Cowboys jerseys. Mm-hmm. So I was starting to rub that in on.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Well, hey, Juice, before we get off here, you want to talk a little bit about the Catch 81 Foundation and the good that's doing within the community?
Yeah, so I always go back to my mom, because my mom is the one that spearheads a lot of stuff that I've done in my life, and she's always preached that I've been given so much that it's imperative that I give back. And we started doing golf tournaments and events back in my fifth year in the league, I think I want to say, somewhere in the late 90s. And and so we got to a certain point where we were given to certain organizations, Cystic Fibrosis, American Cancer Society. And then we started thinking about, look, I grew up in a single parent home, just me and my mom. She had me when she was really young. So we decided to start the Catch 81 Foundation to start raising money for similar people in a similar situation, single parent homes, young moms. My mom went to school. She actually went to, and my mom had me when she was 15 years old. And she ended up being the first one in my family to graduate high school. And in high school back then, if you're pregnant, they kick you out,
Oh, wow.
So she hid her pregnancy almost until I was born. She even hid it from my grandparents until I was almost born.
Wow.
Because she was one of 13 kids. So it was easy to hide. My grandparents are working. And so the kids kind of raised themselves. So kind of worked out pretty good for the family. But so we decided with Catch 81 Foundation, when we started in 2006, that this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this organization ourselves and start doing events to give money to these underserved, underprivileged, single parent homes, young moms, and so they have a chance. We've also started a scholarship program that's going to be starting up in the next few years, where we're just building it, putting some money into it, where we can start giving some of these young moms, scholarship money, so they don't have to quit their dream of going to college. We're going to give them some money so they can go to college and find a way for them to be able to take care of their young children while achieving their goals. So, bro, everything starts with my mom, bro. It really does, man. Without her, hell, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, obviously,
Right.
Yep.
That's super special, man. And what was really cool, probably didn't seem like it to her at the time, being 15 and having a child, but to have Is mom still around?
No, my mom passed about 8 years ago.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. But the amount of influence, OJ, that she had in your life, man, that is just huge. I mean, literally, like every topic that we went through today, you can kind of trace that back to mom's decisions.
Yeah.
Right? The schooling, the decisions, where you live, all that stuff, man. So you're super blessed to have had her as a rock star mom. Yeah,
DC. And that's what I preach to these kids when I talk to them a lot of times too, man. I said, listen to your moms, bro. I tell my kids, listen to your mom. You know what I mean? Listen to your moms. Yep. Moms are the ones, man. Dads try to be cool with the kids. Moms are the ones that are, trying to tell you the right things and be, and my mom always made the right decisions for me growing up. And you don't realize them until you grow up. You're like, man, I hated that. Oh, I hated that. I hated that. I look back at all the major decisions. My mom, real quick, man, I know we're, up against the time.
You're good.
No, you're good, man.
Like I said, my mom had me when she was 15, and she was the first one to go to college. My mom could have just kicked it in college. She could have just kicked it. My grandparents they took care of me. My grandparents said, we got OJ, go do you. My mom's like, no, I want OJ here with me. So I was going to college classes before I went to Penn State. I was 3 or 4 years old going to college classes. Wow. You know what I mean? Because we'd sit in the back.
That's amazing.
So I was a quiet kid. I didn't have an iPad or anything to entertain me, but I was sitting in the back with my mom while she was going to class, man. We couldn't afford childcare, but and then when she moved to Cleveland, she went up a year earlier, and she could have went to Cleveland. My grandparents they would have taken care of me. She said, no, OJ, I'm going to give you 1 year here at our hometown of Marion, but then you're coming up there with me. She's still young, 27 years old. Yeah. She still could have kicked it.
Yeah.
She said, you're coming up here with me.
Yeah.
And so she just never abandoned me. For a young mom, it could be easy at times, but she never abandoned. She made sure I was right there with her. And as soon as I made it, she made it,
Wow. What was mom's name?
Gloria.
Gloria, well done.
Yes.
You raised a really, really great man, and obviously you loved her a lot, still do.
Yeah,
that's
man.
Great.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I miss her every day,
Rockstar
bro.
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet
you do.
I bet.
Yep.
Well, I think that's probably a good way to put a bow on this. Man, that's really special. Juice, awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today, man. This was a lot of fun. I told Darren before we got on, I was like, this one's going to be fun. Oh, yeah. Juice he's fun, man.
OJ, as soon as this dude got back from the cruise, he's like, we're going to have OJ on the podcast. Let's go. And I'm like, all right, man, I know. I'm sure he's awesome. Let's go. So, no, man, thank you so much for the time and the stories. And, wow, just what a career. And, the family and the mom, man, thank you for all the shares. And, man, just keep up the great work and give them back to those other young moms in your foundation. That's great work.
Man, I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for having me on, man. I had a blast, man. And congratulations, man. I think you guys are one of the top pods in the country, right?
We're doing all right. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun.
There.
Good, man.
It is. So everybody can find
Keep studying hard, Bobby. Keep studying hard, Bobby.
You got it, brother. Hey, make sure you guys find OJ on Twitter and Instagram at OJ McDuffie81. You can also catch the Catch 81 Foundation at catch81foundation.org. Guys, this has been the Always Be Cool podcast with your hosts, Bobby Kerr, Darren Copeland.
Thanks,
today's
everyone.
Special guest, Mr. OJ McDuffie. Be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review of the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Always Be Cool Podcast. Everybody be cool. Take care.
If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Darren and Bobby thank you from the bottom of their hearts.
They hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave them a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you're listening. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in our community.
Also, feel free to let DC and BK know which business or community leaders you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments or on social media. See you next time for a new episode. And remember, always be cool.
This podcast is powered by Summit Lending, NMLS number 1850081, Equal Housing Lender.